Welcome to Metal Verbalizers. We discuss underground metal bands by inviting musicians to discuss their bands. Even if you're familiar with a band, you might hear some things that you didn't know already, for example. We believe that it's generally very important to support underground metal bands. I'm Johan Verbalizer, and in this episode, we will verbalize Alyksir. Alright, so let's start by having you introduce yourselves. Your name and what you do for the band.
Yeah, so my name is Alexander. I'm the lead vocals and guitar in the project. So for Alyksir.
Right. So when did you start playing and singing? And also, if you want to, would encourage you to start.
Yeah, so I started when I was about 14. I started mostly just doing guitars. I had a band when I was younger with friends. That was mainly the reason why I started. I had other friends that were into metal, and they started, they picked up bass and they picked up drums and everything. So we just started to jam some songs. And ironically, one of the first ones was Pursuit of Vikings by Amon Amarth.
Right.
So that's kind of like the way we started, our first steps, our first songs and stuff. And I ended up picking up vocals in 2015, roughly, where I was trying to start a new project, and I wanted to do some of the vocals, like some of the growls vocals, and I wanted some female vocals and stuff, and that didn't pan out. But that's when I started doing growls and that kind of stuff.
Right. Then as you were saying, you played guitar first before you started singing.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So I was a rhythm guitarist at the time.
Right. Okay. I would also like to talk a little bit about the band itself. When did you start the band? And also, if you want to explain a little bit about how it started.
Yes. So this was a solo project that I was running while I had my other band. So I had a few songs, ideas, and stuff like that, but didn't quite fit in the style that we were playing. And so I had a very distinct vision for those songs. And then I started writing more and more to a point where I was like, okay, this is an actual project. I should maybe go and do this. Eventually, I spoke to a few people and I said, can we start this project? Can we, are you interested in playing music and everything? And it had many different members were in and out because the project was either it started up and then it fell apart because
right.
People weren't serious, or that kind of stuff. So it took many forms. So it really started around 2012 to 2018, and in 2018 we decided to change the band name to Inner Turmoil. And that became the first actual shows that I did as a frontman, as a vocalist. And it was with some of the songs that I have with Alyksir. So what happened is that when I left to the UK, they decided that they wanted to keep playing, but we didn't have an album out. So we split the songs. They kept the ones that they composed. I kept the ones I composed. And
right.
then I rebuilt Alyksir when I came back in 2023. And we did our first shows and everything. So since 2023, we've been active. And we released our album in February of 2025.
Right. So yeah, since 2023, you've been consistently active, and before that, there was a little bit back and forth, so to speak. Got it.
Exactly.
How would you describe Alyksir for someone who has never heard you before and might be interested in checking you out? How would you quickly describe the band?
The thing I usually tell people is that if there are people that enjoy bands like At the Gates and the very Swedish chainsaw death metal type of riffs and that kind of music, we have a heavy influence from that, as well as some influence from Dissection and some more black metal vibes, where my vocals kind of mix between the two genres. And with the addition of our new guitarist, now we're starting to bring a little bit more prog into it, trying to get a little bit of, soundscaping, a little bit more planar. We do have orchestrations as well. So if you want something that's very melodic, there is a lot of that as well. So it's got a lot of things going on.
Right. Yeah. That was something that I felt like immediately when I heard Devourer the first time. That exactly like you're saying, it's a very interesting mix of a lot of different things.
Hmm.
Like you're saying, you almost have this kind of like death metal style, and that almost kind of is reminiscent of some type of like thrash almost. Then you
Yeah.
also have this, like you're saying, the melodic parts, and also the kind of like almost, I guess you could say like atmospheric sound to
Mhm.
it. That makes it very like feel like you're saying, almost like a black metal type sound in there as well, and kind of like putting all that together, it kind of forms a very interesting sound.
It makes something a little bit more varied. I think from song to song, we get a little bit less of this like static sound that goes from one song to another, and that you're like, okay, I can hear this band, and this band is always, has like that kind of theme or sound around them, which I
Yeah,
think is really good when you're um, to reach a wide audience, when people know what to expect of the sound of
right.
the band. Right now, since we're still in the works of kind of like working with the new guitarist and stuff, as that he's a solo guitarist, he's our lead guitarist. It's changed the dynamic a little bit, and I do want to incorporate his influences more into what we do. So things are changing as well. So we're
Yeah,
still searching for our sound. We're still working on that. So there's a lot to explore. So it's quite interesting, and we've only sung in English for the time being. But our next album is planned to be half half French and half English.
right.
So yeah, because of our Quebec roots, our French roots in Canada, we did want to do half the songs in French.
Right. That does sound very interesting to me because, like you're saying, the English is of course a very very common language in
Mhm.
metal and music in general, of course. But like languages like French in this case, that does sound very interesting to me. So I'm really looking forward to hearing that.
Yeah, but there's like a lot of Finnish and Swedish bands that I listen to that they sing in their own language, and it
Yeah.
doesn't stop me from enjoying their music. So I want to do the same thing. I want to also sing in our language here, um, and yeah, it's just an interesting thing to do, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree. But also, I would also like to talk a little bit about the inspirations and driving
Mhm.
force of the band. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like other bands or even music related, but what would you say is like the driving force of the band?
Well, I think when it comes to like the term, like the themes around the band, which is pretty much kind of like the things that we want to talk about. Like we see in our kind of modern society, people are struggling a lot. People have a lot of, whether they be mental issues or if they are just traumas and things that they're going through. Our songs basically talk about the we try to tap into like those dark um, traumas and things, but we always try to give a silver lining in those songs. So if you do look into the lyrics, you can see that usually there's always a silver lining within those lyrics. It's never completely dark. There's always a little bit of
Right.
light in it. And that's kind of like the thing, that even as dark as the days can be, there's always something positive that we can find, and we need to latch onto. It's important to do that, to try to remind people to do that. So lyrically and thematically, that's what we're going for. As for musical driving force, or at least like musical inspirations, that kind of thing, I was a huge fan of Chuck Schuldiner. It's when I started doing vocals. It was, I wanted to sing and I wanted to do like Chuck
Right.
Schuldiner does. He's especially his last albums, like the three last albums, is really the kind of like the sound that I really enjoy the most. And I would, that's kind of like the way that I started going forward. And as the years progressed, they got very into At the Gates. So then, I had Tompa as well, that I was
Right.
very that I just adored as well. So, and rest in peace. But yeah,
Absolutely.
those are driving forces, and I think I grew up on like Alyksir, so all of the Children of Bottom stuff.
Yeah.
So it's all the melodic aspect comes back from that. So it's these weird, like it's just like these few icons in the metal scene, that created these desires to make a certain sound. And they've kind of like inspired me to do things differently. They've always had different weird approaches. So when you look at like Alexilejo, he always had like this weird like aspect of trying to get gear that
Yeah.
nobody knows about, like, you know, getting preamps inside of his guitar to kind of like change the sound of his guitar so it
Yeah.
doesn't sound like anybody else. And then Chuck Schuldiner just going like off the deep end with the way that he changed his vocals from the very first albums to the last ones,
Yeah.
and that he was like honing his sound and everything, and the way that he would change like the mix of riffs that he would put together that just normally wouldn't make sense, and it made just complete sense. It was just
Right.
genius. And just like the raw emotions that you would get from At the Gates, that kind of stuff. So it's just all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I think maybe that's why our music can be a little bit more eclectic in sense of, you know, the songs not necessarily sounding too similar. I guess it's because of all these different people.
Right. Yeah. And like if I like think about the music of Alyksir and kind of think about the bands, like, you know, like you're saying, the later parts of like Death and like Children of the Bottom and At the Gates, it makes a lot of sense. But also, as we were speaking a little bit about earlier, is that even though it makes a lot of sense that Alyksir is very influenced by these bands, it's also not like a copy of it. It's also like almost if it feels like you're kind of taking that as an influence, but also kind of giving your own flair to it, so to speak.
Well, I think it comes with the addition of orchestrations, which none of the three bands really have. Children of Bottom does have keyboards, but they don't have full-on orchestrations. Where
Right.
now you're going into like Septic Flesh and Dimmu Borgir territory.
Yeah.
But we're not that death metal, or we're not that like kind of like intense on that spectrum. And we're a little bit moody as well. Like we work with moods more than we work with raw aggression and that kind of stuff. So we do have some bits that are a little bit heavier, but we do kind of like play with moods. So it's kind of like we're kind of like on the other side of the spectrum of where Septic Flesh and Dimmu Borgir are, I guess.
Right, exactly. And I think like the kind of thing about the moods, like you express it, I think that's kind of like also what I'm kind of referring to when I talk about like the kind of atmospheric part of Alyksir.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, also I would like to bring it back a little bit to what you said earlier about the kind of lyrics. That is actually something that I noticed with when I checked like lyrics for a song like The Void, for example. That it is like dark, and it's very dark themes, but it also has, like you expressed it before, like almost like a silver lining to it. That was something I noticed in that song, for example.
Yeah, I think that one, My Inception, are typically ones that have a little bit more of that silver lining, and Livestream.
Yeah.
Those have very big silver linings. I think those are they're a little bit more evident. I think it's a little bit harder to find in Disdain. Disdain it's a very angry song. It is a very angry song.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that was something I noticed when looking at the lyrics, like you were saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of lyrics, I guess we could also talk a little bit about like how the songwriting arrangement looks. First of all, would you say that like with Alyksir that it's one person that writes the lyrics, or does every person contributes to it?
So on the first album, I have about 83%, I think came out to be, that it was written by me. Those are just lyrics and music put together. So a vast majority was more my influences. I had some people work with me on certain songs, like Disdain is one that I had multiple people work with me on that one. And of course the orchestrations, we worked with someone that does orchestrations, because I'm not necessarily the best person to do that kind of stuff. When it comes to lyrics, it usually is me, but I'm very open for others that want to bring their influences in, or if they want to write something, I'm always ready to make sure that everyone can have their spot and express themselves. In fact, the new album that we're working on, a lot of the music is actually going to be written by our new guitarist. There's a lot of our influence that's there, but he's coming out with like these really, really great ideas, and we really want to work with these ideas. So I gave him more liberty to just, if he wants to write more songs, we can write more songs, and that's it. Like there's no like vanity behind it. I'm not going to be like I don't want to be the kind of person that controls everything. It's a living thing and it needs to be fed, and you just need to make sure that it's done in a healthy way that everyone can put their input into it. I think that's what makes projects really, really interesting and that they actually work, because then you have people that will just want to leave because they're like, well, my creative side is not coming out, so I'm gonna go make my creative stuff over here, and it's like that doesn't work. You want to work with people, not against people. So yeah. So creatively, we're very open to working with like each member and getting everyone's influences involved. It still has to be coherent, so we do have to make choices and stuff like that when we try to go for honing into our sound more. As the second album is being worked on, we're trying to kind of give ourselves a little bit more of a direction. So yes, it's maybe going to change a little bit from the first album, but we're still trying to go into a certain direction that is going to be coherent with the sound and future of the band. And lyrically, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. But yeah, like something else that I guess we could talk a little bit about is like artwork. Would you like to talk a little bit about the artwork of Devourer, for example?
Mm-hmm. Right. So we had Moon Sprites. She does a lot of graphic art and stuff like that that we do, and we basically had her commission the artwork for the band. I had an idea of having this kind of demon figure that was binded in a sigil, which is the Devourer. That is the Devourer.
Right.
And it turns out that it's actually Lilith. The way that we did it. So if you look at the binding circle underneath, it actually is the circle to bind Lilith. It is right. a seal to contain her. So that's pretty much the kind of, we wanted to go that occult way because it's one of the ways I think it's a vehicle to be able to express a lot of the things that we want to do. So that's why this one was mainly around that. And the artwork was done by her in her very different type of art form. So I don't see many bands do this kind of like artwork. It's almost half digital, half drawing.
Right.
You get some of that, but I haven't seen many album arts that are done in that style. I don't know necessarily if we're going to continue going in that kind of art style going forward, or if we're going to change. We have discussed a little bit, but it's not something that's been a showstopper, for instance.
Right. Yeah, actually, that was about to be my follow-up question. If there was like a style, like for example, with the occult theme that you were planning on kind of continuing on, but then that's not really confirmed, so to speak.
So the occult thing is going to be confirmed. I don't know necessarily about the Devourer himself, but definitely the occult thing is going to still be part of the next albums. We have already a few songs written with lyrics and everything, so the themes, they work with that in mind. Lots to do with the soul and yeah. I don't want to go too much into detail because obviously I don't want to give too much away for the next album, but yeah, there's a lot of that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would also like to say that just generally that I really like the artwork to that album, and I think that was also one of like aspects that really made me want to like check out the music as well, like that artwork. And I don't know, I think it really fits the music as well with the kind of like sound of Alyksir.
Thank you. And it was thought out, and we worked with her specifically because we thought that the artwork would work with the way that we've done things. Though printing on t-shirts is a bit complicated,
Oh,
because of all the colors. Like there's a lot of
right,
colors. It's full spectrum colors, so it's very hard to print to t-shirts. So we had to get them done through a hybrid printing, which is a bit strange, but it works out.
right,
But I think moving forward, like we need to get some more simple designs in terms of like shirts, so that we can actually print T-shirts that are reasonably more reasonably priced, I guess, in a sense, like
yeah,
more in the sense that we can get them like on silk screens and that kind of stuff, and it's easier to mass produce and that kind of stuff. It's a little bit more complicated with the other kind of press.
right,
Um, yeah, so I can't get that pressed everywhere. Like if we were in Europe, it might be a little bit more complicated to source the right person to be able to do those kinds of shirts. In Quebec, I have a contact that I can, but I would have to bring physically the shirts to
right,
Europe if I wanted to. So I think I have like two or three of my friends in Europe that have the shirt. So I mean, we're willing to ship, we're willing to send them if people want them, but it's there's not many people that have them in Europe right now, so it's
right.
mostly here. And we do have physical albums as well. So if we're talking merch and designs and all that kind of stuff, well, the CDs, they do exist. We do have physical CDs. We don't put them on our Bandcamp yet because it's really weird with the US right now with tariffs and stuff.
Right.
So just to make sure that things are like simple, people can contact us directly and we'll gladly send them out. If they want a physical hard copy, and that way we can make sure that it's going to a location that the tariffs are not going to be a problem and that kind of stuff. So if people want a physical copy, absolutely, we're willing to just ship them. There's not many left. We've sold most of them, and same for shirts. So we do have to reprint those, but CDs are actually in limited quantity for the time being. So if
Right.
some people are interested and they like what we do and want to support, then that's a way that we can do that. They can contact us directly through Facebook, on our page, or through our Instagram. And yeah, they can contact us that way if they'd like.
Right. So yeah, like I would also like to. We have already talked about it a little bit, but
Mhm.
I would also like to talk about the future plans of Alyksir. You mentioned
Yeah.
the upcoming album, for example. Would you like
Yes.
to talk a little bit more about that, or is it other plans, like if it's shows or whatever it might be?
Yeah. So right now, well, since I just got back, we've kind of gotten back in the mood of jamming. We're writing. It is more of a writing phase that we're doing for the winter. We would like to plan something for this winter if we can, to in terms of a show, just to kind of get back into the swing of things. And since we've only played the album Devourer in Quebec, on our tour, when we did the tour, when we did the album launch, we haven't played since the album launch. So it's been a little while. So we're inching to get back into it and get back on stage. So that's something that we do want to do, and then we want to also eventually make our way to Europe. So I do have some contacts in Europe that would like to have us come down. So it's really a question of if I can get the right people um, to work with, then we can do that. I have someone in Roskilde in Denmark
Right.
that would love to have us play. So we're already looking at that. But I do have to sort out if we're going to go Northern Europe, then I'm going to want to go ahead and seek out some people in Sweden as well as in Norway if possible. And then depending on how far or how like small of a tour we end up wanting to do in Europe, we can extend. It really depends on if we get offers or if we get people interested enough that they want us to come down. And yeah, we're definitely willing to do that. So it was one of the reasons why I was in Europe. I was there for work, but I was also there
Right.
to try to make contacts, and I wanted to eventually organize a tour within Europe, with my band, whether it be DIY or if it was more of something that was planned through better means. So to us, it's an experience that we would like to live. Yeah.
For sure. And yeah, of course, we would love to see you guys here in Sweden, for example.
Well, I lived in Lund for a year and a half,
Right.
and this was during COVID, unfortunately.
Yeah.
um, but yes, I would really love to be back and play in Sweden specifically if possible. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. But yeah, I believe that is pretty much all that I had. But is there anything else that you would like to say before we end? For example, something you wish I asked about that you feel like you want to say, or generally anything that you would like to say?
Well, other than, people should listen to this podcast more. It's great,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
and support to go out to shows and support their local bands. Local bands become international bands eventually, but we can't do it without the support of local people. So it all stems from there. You can't we can only do so much, and hopefully people enjoy our music as much as the next band's stuff enough to help everyone, make more music.
Definitely. And of course, I definitely agree with that. It's exactly like you're saying, even the greatest, like most successful bands were underground bands at some point.
Exactly.
So supporting underground bands is very, very important.
Mhm.
And that is also a big reason to why we do what we are doing.
Yeah, and that's why people should watch you guys more.
Yeah,
Because
thank you
you
very
guys,
much.
just like a local band, you guys need the support as well. As podcasters, you're creating a platform for local bands and for international bands, and we need more support for you guys as well as the support for the bands themselves.
Exactly. I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. But yeah, I would also like to thank you very, very much for taking the time to make this episode.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and thank you for inviting us. I reached out a while ago, and I'm really happy that you guys reached out again and said, hey, now's a good time. We can kind of see if we can do this. So I appreciate very much you guys taking the time to meet us and
Yeah, for
speak with us
sure.
and listening to us.
Absolutely. I mean, we're more than happy to support. And yeah, again, thank you very much. And I, of course, wish you all the luck for the future album and for the future work of Alyksir.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, and have a good one.
All right, bye bye.
Now we want you to go and listen to Alyksir. If you like what you hear, show them some support. It is very important that you do that. Buying merch and going to shows is really great support, but you shouldn't underestimate things like sharing the music and interacting with the band's social media pages. Things like this does help a lot, so it is a great way to help the bands. We really appreciate that you have been listening all the way to the end. Thank you very much for listening to and supporting Metal Verbalizers. We will be back to verbalize again next week.